When people seek help at the Allen County Courthouse, it doesn't always come from a courtroom or involve an attorney. Do you need to file or get a copy of a court case? Do you need to pay a traffic ticket? Maybe your wedding day is coming up and you need a marriage license. Even Allen County's elections are run by the same versatile and well-respected community resource. It's the Office of the Allen County Clerk of the Courts, a hub of information and public service. I'm John McGauley, and on this episode of INSession, we're exploring the Clerk's office and learning more about the many important services it delivers. We have a full agenda and a full guest list on this episode of INSession, so let's get started. The Clerk's office definitely brought its heavy hitters to the podcast today, including the Clerk of the Courts himself, Chris Nancaro. Everybody, welcome to INSession.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you, John.
Hello.
In the interest of the community getting to know its public servants better, I always like to start with a round of introductions. Let's definitely do that today. And Chris, let's start with you.
Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Nancaro. I'm the elected clerk of court in Allen County. I'm in my second term right now, and I can do 2 4-year terms, and I have 2.5 years to go on this. And prior to being clerk of the court, I was chief deputy for about 7 years.
All right. And you said yes today to having about half your staff on the podcast, so we appreciate that too. Amy Scroggum.
Hi, I'm Amy Scroggum. I am the Director of Elections for Allen County.
I'm Andrew Noak. I'm the Small Claims Manager.
I'm Jen Linker. I'm the Assistant Manager in Finance.
And I'm Jerome Slate, Central Services Manager.
All right. So there really is no way in the world for somebody to have a complete understanding of local government without knowing what the clerk's office does. We're going to dig a lot deeper into specifics as we go along today, but let's start, Chris, with the 50,000-foot overview of the role of the clerk of the courts.
And first off, John, I want to thank you for having us today. I think people don't realize what goes on behind the scenes in the courthouse. Your INSessions are very valuable to the public, and people can be very intimidated by what goes on in the courthouse. Life-altering decisions are made here every day. Someone getting married, someone getting divorced, family structures being changed, someone being incarcerated, big judgment against their company or business. And I think the clerk's office, we're here today, is typically considered the front lines of the judiciary. So when someone has an issue that needs to be brought to the courthouse, they come to the court staff first, or the clerk staff first at the front counters to file their case, ask how to proceed if they need as well. And we'll walk them through that process to a certain extent. We can't do all the work for them, but we can show them the resources and what could be available to them.
And as I will mention many times during this podcast, we refer a lot of phone calls to your office. So there are a lot of moving parts to the clerk's role in the courts, as we will discuss. You've actually got 4 different divisions that come together under the umbrella of the clerk's office. Let's talk briefly about those and what they do.
We actually have a couple more divisions. I'll start off. We have a finance division that will handle all the court-related finance matters. So it could be fines, it could be filing fees, it could be judgment payments, child support payments. And we also have a records management division, and their records management division will help out mostly with deep dives into court records. As we'll get along further in the podcast, talk about the records we have here. People may need copies of certain documents to be able to complete other life-changing actions. We also have court records division that helps the court make case-related entries, such as chronological case summary entries, get notice out to parties. We have a small claims division, and they'll handle matters from evictions to matters related to issues less than $10,000 or protection orders. We have a central services division, which at the courthouse, they'll handle the marriage licenses, the main filings that come across. And the other matters when it comes to where should I go? I'm at the courthouse, where should I go? And they'll direct you in that direction. And we also have an administrative division, which is where I sit here with the chief deputy and director of operations and administrative assistant to make sure all this runs efficiently.
Now, in my day job over in Allen Superior Court, we answer a lot of questions from the public, many of which involve a referral to your office, Chris. One of the most frequent is, how do I get a copy of a court case that I was involved in? Maybe a divorce, a small claims matter, maybe a criminal matter. The clerk's office is the keeper of the court record and really the only place in the courthouse to get copies of documents. How do you get copies of court records? Jerome.
Well, we do have many outlets. Online request, we recommend people to utilize our allencoclerk.us website. If they're going to do an over-the-phone request, they're going to utilize the 260-449-7245 phone number to do that. And they can utilize the in-person, which is in room 201, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30.
What if I want to review court records that aren't about me? What's public, what's not in the public domain?
Well, it depends. We can determine what's confidential and what's not confidential. If it is confidential and you are a party not on record, you cannot utilize that, or you can't view that.
Yeah.
If you are a party, it determines as well, because some are confidential to petitioner, some are confidential to respondent. So it just Depends on that document.
So how far back do the clerk's archives go? Is the process of getting copies different if I'm looking for something from years ago?
Oh, yeah. We go back to 1824. We have some marriage records from back in 1824. Late 1800s to early 1900s we have some divorce proceedings. It depends, because we're going to do an in-depth research, to try to see if we can find the records that you're needing. So it just depends. Yes, we are going to have to go in more depth for that older archives record.
And I've seen your archives. It kind of looks like that last scene at Indiana Jones where they're
We do have many
rolling
books that
there,
are broken, and you're not allowed to touch them.
What else have you got down there? Now, this is probably a good place to mention the MyCase website. People ask all the time about how to keep track of a particular court case. Somebody tell me about mycase.in.gov.
Yeah, well, this began several years ago when the court started transition from paper files to electronic files. And in that note, the state court started to look at the PACER system, see what was accessible online. And so as we transitioned to e-filing, we were able to get a lot of the documents into PDF format, which later became part of this big database of court cases throughout the state of Indiana. At the time, the Indiana Supreme Court wanted cases to be very accessible to the public and not have to pay for every single document that comes through. What they will do is they'll make sure, if you're looking at something on MyCase, they want to make sure that you're actually entitled to look at it. So if it's confidential, you'll have zero access. Attorneys may have greater access, but they have to sign in, and some attorneys may have more access if they're actually the attorney on the case. The nice thing about MyCase is you can look at the history of the case and get up-to-minute notice when the CCS entry is made, usually the midnight that's actually processed. The downside to MyCase is sometimes a litigant may see something before their attorney does, and the first thing the attorney gets is an 8 a.m., 9 a.m. phone call from that litigant saying, hey, did you realize this happened on my case last night? And the attorney had no clue at this point because they're working on other cases as well. So MyCase is a great resource to an extent, and you always, if you need an official copy, always reach out to your clerk's office for that official copy. You cannot get an official copy off MyCase, but you can at least see what may be available for your specific need. If you need to go further, you can contact the clerk for that.
And there are rules that govern what kinds of documents that are available on MyCase. There are a lot of civil documents, but not a lot of criminal documents.
Correct. And actually I've always heard this described, but Indiana Supreme Court says there's public documents, confidential documents, and creepy documents. And the creepy ones I've heard are the ones kind of like a divorce case. Even though divorce cases are public information, you can go to any courthouse in Indiana, pull someone's divorce record. They wanted to take that ability to not have someone sit at home and just look at someone's divorce case online, sit at home in their PJs and look at random people's court cases, because some of those divorce decrees and marital settlement agreements may have so-and-so is given this and so-and-so has this, and you realize, oh, that person's on vacation this week. On Facebook, they're on vacation. I know this is at their house. So we shouldn't have those documents that available. So we should at least have some sort of extra burden to go down to your courthouse and pull those public documents. And some cases are confidential from the get-go. You're not going to be able to find a mental health case online if you make a search. It all depends on the nature of the case, and sometimes the document itself may be confidential. Maybe a report was made about a specific litigant that they're not supposed to know about, but it's a public case. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes to designate what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Sounds like a lot of thought went into it when they set it up initially. So let's talk about the process of filing a new court case. You receive and enter new court cases in the clerk's office, and by my count, if my math holds up, there were 62,000 of those in 2023. Somebody walk me through the process of how a new case arrives on your doorstep. Andrew.
I'll go ahead with the small claims portion of it. We have an electronic filing system that attorneys are obligated to use. I think that was back in May of 2017 when that was finalized, that they had to file electronically. So they can file those through our e-filing website. There are, I think, 8 or 9 service providers that they can choose from. And once they file those electronically, it comes through that system to the clerk's office, where our staff then goes through, codes everything properly in order to open that new case file. It could be sent over to the courts in order for them to assign it a hearing date if it's set for the trial calendar. If it's set on the claims calendar, the attorneys will usually have their own hearing dates filled in on those. And then we process it, open it. Once we've received it and opened it, it assigns it that case number, and then it goes back to the attorney with the hearing date on it, the clerk stamp, the date, and the seal that we've received it and opened that new claim. And then they are responsible for their service once they filed it electronically. If they do it in the building, if it's a pro se person and they come into our office and file it, they can do that on paper, and then our staff at the counter does the same thing. They'll go ahead and open that claim, do it on paper, scan it into the system. We'll actually walk them over to scheduling at that point to get that hearing date set. and then they'll come back over, get any copies they may need. And then the clerk's office actually does the service for the initial new claim filing. Anything subsequent or after that is responsibility of the filer to do that. But we'll send it over to the sheriff's department if need be. We'll mail it to a different county sheriff as long as it's within the state of Indiana. Or if they choose certified mail, they'll sign signature mail. They would have to sign for it from the post office. Then they go ahead and do that, and we'll actually mail those out to that party then at that point that they're filing against.
Jerome.
Yeah, essentially, civil cases and domestic relation cases act as the same. We'll file it. Sometimes the litigant could direct us, or the attorney can direct us to what court they want it in. If it stipulates it's circuit court versus superior court, we'll make sure that it goes into that correct court. Essentially, the process is the same. We open it up, it goes back to the parties. The parties will perform service. If it's pro se and they're in front of us, we'll go ahead and do the signature confirmation service at that time.
And I also like to add, too, that, prosecutors also have to create new cases, too. So the prosecutor's office actually tomorrow we're having a meeting with the prosecutor about e-filing their cases going forward. So, vast majority of Allen County's caseload will be the misdemeanor and traffic cases, where they'll have felony cases as well, but those will be coming from the prosecutor here in town.
Now, I've got another question here shortly about e-filing, but I think a lot of us probably came into the system when the world was paper. Mounds and mounds and stacks of paper. E-filing has had a dramatic impact on the amount of paper that comes through your door. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the best visual example would be Andrew's office and small claims back when we were in paper, and the stacks and the mountains of paper.
Oh, yeah. I remember working Saturdays. Chris came back from maybe a conference on a Friday long week conference. They came in early on a Saturday morning with us when he was chief deputy at the time, and we literally would have 8-foot tables stacked maybe 2.5 feet high.
Wow.
Full of paper. It was just everywhere, and it didn't slow down.
So dramatic is a little bit of an understatement.
I think not just
at least for our world, yes.
Yeah.
And not just the visual of it too, but also how it affects people's lives. Like the 2 or 3 months out delay in getting to a document, and now we're same day turnaround, and if not 1 day turnaround when it comes to someone getting closure on their matter. So. Instead of going around trying to hunt around for a piece of paper that could be in the magistrate's office or maybe a filing cabinet or someone else's desk, everything's accessible to everyone within our system. We can just click on it, drop the seals that we need, put dates in as needed. We're not trying to hunt down a file. Things can be turned around same day, or if not maybe 2 days. And instead of waiting 3 months for a hearing date or 3 months for a document to be reached, we have a lot of closure for people in our community.
There's a lot of technical innovation that goes on in Allen County government, and that's a really good example of one of those. Now, we mentioned the adoption of e-filing. I think it was mandatory in 2017. One element of that is electronic notice of activity in cases. Talk about the importance of having a valid email address on file with the clerk's office if you're involved in a case.
Anyone else can follow up with me after this, but I think the big thing is whenever something happens in a case, the party deserves to get notice of that activity. So maybe a hearing date is set, maybe an action is set, maybe a deadline is set. And it used to go out by U.S. Postal Service, so that would be mailed out to you. And we all know there could be issues with delays in mail or a completely mishandled mail. And then you show up for that hearing 3 or 4 months later, that party didn't get notice, and then reset the time clock again. You're going to have another hearing 3 months out to readdress that issue. And not only, from a taxpayer perspective too, we were spending $500,000 a year in postage.
Wow.
Now we're close to $200,000, maybe just a tad bit more than $200,000. That's just notices going out. We can email those instead of send those out by envelope. And maybe the managers here can elaborate how much that's helped their office too. So
It does help. When we can reduce the cost of postage and the efficiency to get people notified of what action is taking place in their case, I highly recommend you to file a written appearance with the clerk to make sure that your email address is valid, and that way you get notified promptly.
I think it helps too, with persons that need or want their documents and are able to keep them in a certain file or something like that. They expire after, I think it's 20 or 21 days, but they're able to at least save that document from an email drive, or if they needed to go back and see when they received it, they could do a simple search by who they received it from, and it's right there at their fingertips again.
And a lot of people also, they may be relocating, like maybe their life situation, they have to relocate, and then their old mailbox. But pretty much 99% of people nowadays have a cell phone and an email address, so they can always reach out to their court case if needed.
So that begs a question. If you don't have an email address on file, accessing those updates can be hard. You're going to get a paper notice in the mail with a link that's about this long, and I'm holding my hands about 2 feet apart. This isn't TV. You're going to get that paper notice. It's hard, it's complicated, probably hard to type that into a web browser. If somebody's getting paper notices and wants to change or add an email address to their case, how do they go about doing that?
Correspondence or a written appearance.
Okay. One of the most common misconceptions among pro se litigants, people who are representing themselves, is that there is a rack of ready-to-go forms somewhere in the courthouse with everything in it. From adoptions to divorce, we get these calls all the time over in my office. Hey, where can I find the form for adopting my grandkids? Well, that's too complicated to have a ready-to-go form. I already know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have forms available? And outside of your office, outside of the courthouse, where can people go to find that kind of help?
The first thing I'd recommend is, depending on your issue, we always recommend you contact an attorney because maybe you'll grab the wrong form. But we do have plenty of forms available on our website, allencoclerk.us, and you'll find most of our commonly used forms. You won't find every form, but you'll find the ones used most often. There's also indianalegalhelp.org is another great one also that's being expanded upon all the time and also being updated with forms as the statutes change as well. You can always contact your office to see what's available, and you can also contact your local bar association to see if there's maybe an attorney that handles that sort of matter and other resources that may be available in the community as well.
To add to that, would probably to reach out depending if it's a domestic relation case within circuit or superior court, you can utilize the circuit or superior court websites as well.
Okay. And those are at allensuperiorcourt.us and allenscircuitcourt.us.
You got it.
And it's worth saying again, I think Chris mentioned this, that it is always best if you're able to consult an attorney when taking legal action, especially in complicated cases. And if you need assistance, we have an embarrassment of riches in this county in terms of free and reduced cost legal aid services that you can tap into. Now, questions about self-help resources like forms come up all the time when people especially are trying to file for divorce. Are there forms available for divorce cases? And another common question that comes up, how much does it cost to file?
So there are forms available. I did see indianalegalhelp.org does have forms available. You click on the divorce tab and you'll find those available. You can also maybe go to the Allen County Public Library. You'll find forms documents in there as well. You'll find different recommended forms. But then again, like I mentioned, you want to make sure you're grabbing the right form. And the one thing the clerk's office cannot do is tell you what to file. We can tell you what form may get you that direction, but we can never hold your hand through the case and say, this is what you need to do next. This is how you fill out that form. This is what you write down. We can't do that. We're just the resource that can maybe guide you to those areas. And for the cost of the divorce, it's $177, not including any fees that it may take for the service to get the other party in.
Let's go quickly to the flip side of that coin. We often say that nobody comes to the courthouse because they want to, but in your case, that's not always true. One of your responsibilities is issuing marriage licenses. How does somebody get a marriage license from your office? What do they need to have done in advance? And what should they bring with them when they come to your office to seek a marriage license?
Well, you're going to start with the electronic part online. Once you complete that, both parties will need to be present Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. We do have a fee of $25, an additional certified copy fee of $4. If they need that, if they want to change their name, or if they need it for anything legal, they'll want that. So it'd be $29 total. Once again, both parties present. One of the IDs has to have a valid Allen County address. If that does not, if it's a different county, they'll need to apply in that specific county. If it's out of state, it's a $65 fee and then a $4 certified copy fee, so $69 total. Okay. But once again, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. It usually takes 10 to 15 minutes to complete in our office, and it is a very happy moment for everyone, including the clerk's office.
That was my next question. Is that a fun part of the job? Do you guys get to interact much with the happy couples coming in to get their license?
My 25 years of being here, I've met many people. In fact, my daughter went to Southern Miss for her first 2 years, and I met a couple from Hattiesburg, and my daughter actually got to meet her daughter at Southern Miss. They met through our office.
Proof positive that it really is a small world.
About how many are done per year? A couple, 2,000 plus?
1,800 to 2,200.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
I'm not going to ask how many divorce filings you get.
Yeah. Wintertime versus summertime, totally different. You can see.
Did that number jump around a lot during COVID? Marriage filings, marriage license filings?
Yeah. I mean, there was a decrease. I mean, we had
everything went
down. Yeah. Back to your point on the postage and e-notice, that was another issue we had back during COVID was, how are we going to supply these people with notice if during COVID, because post office wasn't getting things delivered in a timely fashion. So, back to that e-notice, It was difficult during COVID. COVID put a damper on a lot of things.
Now, the next thing that comes to mind is that your office is where the public goes to pay fees, fines, judgments, traffic tickets, child support, probably a whole list of other things. Talk about that aspect of the office for a moment. Where do you go? What do you do to pay an obligation? And definitely spotlight how to pay a traffic ticket, since that is one of the most frequent questions we get.
Yeah. Did you want to take that one, Jennifer?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Jennifer.
Room 200 in the courthouse, we collect fees for civil judgment, child support, felony payments, for court costs, restitution, and public defender fees, or any fees that the judge or magistrate may order. The juvenile center only collects child support fees, and if copies are requested, copy fees. And then the Bud Meeks Justice Center takes the misdemeanor and traffic tickets.
And what kind of payment methods can you take? Can people pay via all the normal means, check, cash, credit card?
They can. For child support, it is only cash. Here in room 200, we take check, cash, or credit card. Misdemeanor and traffic is only cash as well.
Okay. Now, my office often refers people to the online payment portal on your website. What kinds of obligations can people pay online, and how do people find that?
Yeah, you can go to allencoclerk.us, and there's a drop-down menu at the top left. So you have the online services, and you go down to make a payment. And you can make your civil payments, your criminal payments, and you also pay your copy fees through that portal as well. If you request a copy through the clerk's office, you can pay your fees through there to get your copy sent to you.
Good. Now, I have the feeling that the answer to this next question is going to be a lot. How big of a task is that, accepting payments for court business? I mentioned earlier, we had 62,000 new filings just last year. How much money are you responsible for in a given year? Jennifer?
Anywhere from 70 to 90 million.
Wow. So it really was a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And we have to count for every single dime.
Yeah, you
we'll
do.
have an audit every year. State Board of Accounts will come through, pull some random cases, look at the overall numbers, and if we're off, we have to make that up and reach out to the auditor's office.
Earlier in the podcast, we talked about the different divisions that make up the clerk's office. I think I got that number wrong, didn't I, Chris? I said 4. It was...
Oh, yeah, 5 plus the administrative. So
5 plus the
total,
administrative,
so.
okay. And you've got at least 3 different locations that I can think of. Talk about the clerk's role in small claims. Andrew's already done that a little bit over at the Courthouse Annex, and at the Misdemeanor and Traffic Division over at the Bud Meeks Justice Center.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about the Misdemeanor and Traffic Division? So we do have 3 staff members over there under Jennifer's office.
Jennifer.
Right. So the misdemeanor and traffic at the Bud Meeks, they take those type of case payments. It is only cash there. For a traffic ticket, I would recommend reaching out to the court staff there. A lot of people don't know about the infraction deferral program,
That's right.
which could save you not only cost on your ticket, but cost on your insurance as well. There is a number at the bottom of the ticket that gives you the phone number for the court staff. Reach out to them and talk to them about it. But we also have the juvenile center too that takes child support payments as well.
So it's 4 locations. So right around the corner here in Allen County and across the state and the country are the 2024 presidential elections and a host of important down-ballot local races. The clerk's office also has an enormous role in managing our local elections. Tell me more about the election division. Is that for Amy?
Yes, and mostly for Amy, but I will say that the clerk's office is very heavily involved with the election board. In Allen County, or in Indiana, you have 92 different counties, and every county might be structured just a little bit differently. In Allen County, we have the clerk's office, but we also have a separate election board, where in a lot of the smaller counties, you'll have the clerk overseeing the election day-to-day duties. But fortunately in Allen County, we have a separate specialty office that focuses just on that, and Amy Scroggins, our director here, will elaborate on that.
And I gotta call out Amy in particular, because in a previous life, I ran for office a few times. I was the county recorder for a couple of terms, and I'm firmly convinced that Amy and her predecessor probably kept me out of trouble, kept me out from in front of the election board many times. So thank you. Appreciate your help. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the election board performs all administrative functions of the election process except voter registration. In our county, there's not very many, but our voter registration board is separate. So they're the ones that would do registering people to vote, things like that. So the election board, we do precinct boundary changes, we do contracts of voting locations, candidate and campaign finance filings, ballot preparation, oversight of precinct supplies and personnel, vote tabulation and certification of candidates elected to office.
Perhaps for Amy again, we're taping this in late March before primaries in May and a general election in November. Is it too late for folks to get registered to vote?
It is not. They can either come in person to the voter registration office, which is in the Rousseau Center, or they can go to indianavoters.com. You would just need like your ID, and you can actually do it all online. It's pretty easy.
Now, on that same front, talk about voting by mail. How do people request a mail-in ballot? Is that still a popular method of voting? And do they have to make that request every election?
Yes, they do have to request it every election. We do not have a list that does that except for the military. They're allowed to do it one time for the whole year because usually they're not local. They can either go online to indianavoters.com and request the application online, or they can call us at 260-449-7329. They can email us at electionboard@allencounty.us.
Folks listening to this might not know how important volunteers are to the running of smooth elections. For Chris or Amy, whoever may be the best to talk about this, talk about the role of poll workers and how people get involved if they'd like to.
Well, actually, it's a paid position. You do get paid, some for working election day. You can either contact the Democratic or Republican Party, or you can actually complete a poll worker application on our website, allencountyinvoters.gov.
So I'll switch volunteers to community-hearted individuals.
That's right.
Yeah.
We appreciate every single one of them.
Now, I think you mentioned the Indiana Voters website already, but maybe it's worth mentioning again. And if somebody hasn't voted for a while or just wants to check to be sure that their registration's in good shape, what's the easiest way to find out if you're registered to vote?
I mean, if you're computer savvy, indianavoters.com would be best. Or you can call the voter registration office at 260-449-7154.
Fantastic.
And check your registration.
I feel like we could talk about the clerk's office all day and barely scratch the surface. You guys certainly have an enormous job. We've hopefully given listeners a great introduction to what you do and how vital a role you all play in the courts and in local government in general. Before we wrap it up, anybody have any final thoughts?
So just to add on to the role of the small claims court, we deal with protective orders down there as well. We have 3 staff like individualized to that particular case type that enter orders or anything like that onto their cases. When they come down and file, they can file it anytime from 8 to 11 or 1 to 3 Monday through Friday and actually speak with the magistrate on those. Any other time they can file electronically, or they can do it as like a drop-off where the magistrate would review it at a later time, and then they would be notified whether it was granted or denied. We're fortunate enough in Allen County to have a protective order specialist. She does a great job with the court staff of getting them started, initiating those claims, and then getting them upstairs to speak with the magistrate at the ex parte stage for their hearing on it.
And that's a great example of the kind of technical assistance that we can offer people with sometimes complex forms that they've got to fill out.
Absolutely. And, our staff, we make sure that Rosie has enough forms over there, the clerk's office. We get her anything she may need.
Yeah, I also want to add too about our small claims court here in Allen County. It is the busiest court in the entire state. Other counties may have their small claims courts divided within their jurisdiction of their county, but everything small claims related will go through this one single court here in Allen County, and 25,000 plus cases a year and 4,500-ish protective orders a year. It is the busiest court. I would like to say and give props to the entire clerk's office. Someone who comes in here, they're coming in here probably under a bad situation. Yeah. And I think our managers and our staff are, the best at being able to treat these situations, treat every person like the human that they are. Everyone's going through that difficult life situation. We're here to help them as much as we can. And I cannot think of a better staff to work with. And one thing that they did tell me in law school is always be nice to your clerk because they can get things done for you.
All right. Well, we've certainly fulfilled the objective of this podcast, which is just really give people a good introduction to what goes on in the courthouse and our other buildings downtown. Thank you again from the Allen County Clerk's Office, Chris Nancaro, Jerome Slate, Jennifer Linker, Andrew Noak, and Amy Scroggum. I certainly appreciate your time and all the information that you've provided to our listeners. Thanks a lot for being on INSession.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been INSession, an inside look at the Allen County, Indiana courts. You can find out more on this topic and others at allensuperiorcourt.us. Thanks for listening. The next episode's coming right up.